In today's project, we're going to do a simple animation using gears and a word. So let's start by deleting the cube, the light, and we'll go ahead and delete the camera to make this a little bit easier, and then we can add it back later. Next, press 7 on the number pad so you're looking at it from the top. And with our add-on that we just installed, we'll go to Add, so Shift A. So that was Shift A, sorry. Mesh. And if we go down, we'll see some new options and you'll see gears. So select gear, and that gives us one gear in our scene. Next, let's go ahead and add our word. So Shift A for the add menu, text, and still in the top view, I'll hit G to grab and move that up to the top. For my word, I'm just going to use Blender. And I'm only going to do one letter with this object. So I have just the first letter of my word and I'm in edit mode. Remember, edit mode will let you type and change the word, and switch back to object mode by hitting tab. So I'll need a few more letters for my word. So Shift D once. So BLENDER. BLENDER. So I should have enough letters for my word. So I'm just going to go through and change each one the letter that I need. So just left click to select, tab to go into edit mode, type your letter, then tab to go back to object mode, select, tab, backspace, your letter, tab to go into object mode, and so on. Now, we'll need one gear for each letter. So I have 7 letters, so I'll need 7 gears. So left click to select, Shift D to duplicate, and I'm just going to pick a spot to the right of this and line the teeth of the gears up. For right now, we don't want to rotate this. That will complicate a later step. So for now, we're just going to pick a spot so that we can line these up without having to rotate any of them at the moment. So I believe that gives me 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Next, we're going to move each of our letters into the center of one of the gears. So left click to select, G to grab, and just visually line it up. And I'm using Shift and the middle mouse wheel to move left, right, up, and down, and the middle mouse wheel to zoom in case you've forgotten. Select the next letter, G to grab, put it in the middle, and we will, we will straighten these up in just a second. So left click, G to grab, move it over. Now, any of them that you want to line up a little better, if you select it, hit G to grab, and then use your arrow keys, you can move it over in small amounts and have a little more control about getting them right where you want them. So take a minute, line up all your letters where they're roughly in the center. We're not going to worry about making sure they're perfectly in the center, like so. Next, when our gears turn, we want the letter to be attached to that. So we're going to use something called parenting. And the idea is that you have a child object attached to a parent object. Just like in real life, when the parents go somewhere, the child is attached and goes with them. They don't just run off on their own. To do that, we're going to select the letter first, then Shift, select the gear. The shortcut for the parenting menu is Control P, and we're going to select Object. You'll notice, excuse me, there's a black line that's connecting the origin point of the B to the origin point of the gear. So now if I select the gear and hit R to rotate, And once again, I'm in top orthographic, and it should be rotating around the z-axis. The letter B rotates with that. If for some reason I move this, the letter B would move with that also. So we're going to repeat that process for each letter and each gear. Select the letter, shift select the gear, Control P, select the object, letter, shift select the gear, Control P, object, and so on until you have each of them parented to the correct thing. Next, we are going to animate the rotation of one of the gears. So let's open our property shelf by hitting N on the keyboard and select our first gear. At the beginning, this is the rotation that I want for the gear. So hover your mouse over rotation, hit I to insert a keyframe, and that will turn yellow. At the very end of our animation, we want it to be exactly the same place. So right now our animation ends at frame 250. I will change the current frame to 250. So you can see that this marker has moved to 250. And then I'll hit I once again. So we have a keyframe where it stays exactly the same from start to finish. Now, let's change the current frame to 125. That should be in the middle. And let's make sure we have the first gear selected and rotate it around and around a few times. So I'm at like a negative 1062, but it doesn't matter. We're going to play with this number in a little bit. So once you have rotated that sum, we'll hit I once again while hovering over the rotation values to insert a keyframe. And if we go back to the beginning and hit play, you'll notice that our gear turns in one direction, starts to slow, and then goes back the other direction. Now, we want all our other gears to turn in relation to this gear. So we could go through and individually animate each one with keyframes. The problem is, if we need to make a change, then we have to reanimate each gear. So we're going to use something called drivers to control the movement of the other gears based on our first gear. So select your first gear, go over to the rotation values and hover your mouse over Z. Right click and go to the bottom and copy as new driver. Now select your second gear, go to the Z rotation, right click and select paste driver. Now, a driver, think of it like a car. You have someone driving the car. So for every movement the driver, the person in the car makes, the car responds to that. So if I push my foot down, the car accelerates. If I put my foot on the brake, the car slows down. So in Blender, a driver means that one object is controlling the actions of another object. So if I hit play, you'll notice that they're both spinning at the same speed in the same direction. So the movement of this is directly controlling the rotation of the second one. Now, in gears, the rotation of this should cause the opposite spinning of the second gear. So we need to fix it so that it spins in the opposite direction. To do that, make sure you have the second gear selected. Go back to your driver value here on Z. Right click. And we want to edit the driver. Now, when you bring this right click to edit the driver, this menu is based on where your mouse is. So if you move your mouse away, that disappears, which is sometimes a bit annoying. But right click, edit driver, and we want to change or do two things. First, change the type to scripted expression. And then we see this part that says expression. We have rotation underscore Euler. And this is just the rotation value. That's the name Blender is giving it. So we're going to click in this area. We're going to hit the multiply sign on the number pad. It's right above 9. And we want to multiply this by -1, which means it will go the opposite direction. Once you've done that, we can move our mouse away. And if we go back and hit play, this gear is now spinning in the opposite direction of the original gear. So let's go back to our original gear. Let's once again go to the Z rotation value, right click, copy as new driver. So every other one should spin the same way as this gear. So 1, 2, 3, select this one, go to Z, right click, and paste driver. Skip this one, come to the next, the fifth one, go to Z, right click, paste driver. Skip this one, and my last one is the seventh. Right click on Z, paste driver. So now all of those gears are turning in relation to the first one. Last, let's copy the rotation of the second one. So go to the Z value, right click, copy as new driver. Go to the fourth one, right click, paste driver. Go to the sixth one, right click, paste driver. Now all of your gears should rotate in relation to the ones around them. Now let's do something a little more advanced. Look at the top along the info header and find the animation tab. This switches the layout to make it a little more convenient to do animation related things. And we're going to look at this window on the left. We're going to this icon in the top left corner. Click that, and we're going to change this to the graph editor. I'm going to hit 7 on my number pad. That's interesting. Hang on just a second. I've done something to... Never mind. They weren't in the start position. That's why they look funny. All right, let's try that again. So we are back in the animation tab. We're looking at the first gear. Make sure it's selected. This is the one that actually has the keyframes. And here on the left, you have the gear. You have an action of the gear, which is the rotation transform. And we want to look specifically at the Z. So I'm going to open these until I find Z Euler rotation and select that. In this window, I'm going to zoom out. And let's see, there's a way to shrink this. There we go. If you hold Control and the middle mouse wheel and drag up and down, you can condense this. And if you scroll your mouse wheel, you can kind of zoom in. So what you see here is the rotation of the gear. You start at 0, the rotation starts to go into the negative, all the way to negative 1060 something. And then it starts to reverse and go back up to the positive, back to 0 again. Now you can take and select this little object and hit G, and you can change the rotation. So I'm going to hit play so I can see in real time what effects my movements are having. You can select these handles and change how this speeds up or slows down. So take a minute, play with those until you find a value that you like. Once you're happy with that, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to go to modifiers here on the right. We're going to click add modifier, and we're going to add noise. Now this adds just random up and down movement to the value. Now what I have now is a bit too much, so I'm going to change the scale to like 5, 10, and then change the strength to maybe 2. And what this is going to do, it's going to make it look like the gears are spinning, and then it's starting to struggle, so they're jerking back and forth until they begin spinning back in the other direction. So it adds a lot of random movement. There are many cases where you just want some random object differences in rotation or location, whatever it might be. So play with those numbers until you get something that you like. And in the next video, we will try rendering this as an animation, and we'll add some colors and things and see how that goes.